starting to trickle in. We just
Yeah.
hit the official mark. So
Right.
it's 7 p.m. in Sweden. It should be, what, 10 a.m. your time?
It is indeed.
Cool. That's the time we gave folks. So what we're going to do now is I don't know what to do. So everything we've discussed, even before we got on the stream here, it's
Yeah.
all brilliant and I don't want to lose it. So what I'm thinking is it'll make for a weirder video when I post it and post on YouTube. But we'll do the official, like, who are you? You know, give us your background kind of
Sure.
thing now. But I'm just going to keep everything from the moment we
Yeah.
started streaming,
Whatever.
basically.
Yeah, that's cool.
And what I'll also
It's
do
your
is
show, man. You do your thing.
show is such an interesting word for what
I'm
we
just a
do.
I'm just a player.
What I'm going to do is I'll keep Discord open, but I don't think moderators are going to be here today. And so what I'll also do then is I'll keep an eye on chat. We'll
Yeah,
just kind
I've
of
got
roll.
the Twitch chat open so I can follow that too.
Perfect. And so for the most part, we'll just say I notice I talk too damn much in these
Nah.
freaking things. So what I'll do is I'll try to shut up more on this one. You seem like a man who can tell a story anyway, so I got the feeling you're just gonna go, and I'm just gonna kind of
Nah.
chill here, and I'll pull some shit out of
So
chat.
so
Who are you?
I'll throw this out for just a second. I've enjoyed the thing so far, and I think you have a really good back and forth going with people, especially because you know
Awesome.
most of the people, you know. So
I
anyway,
appreciate it.
so yeah, I'm Doug Cronkhite. I went by the name Elidroth. Started out at Sigil, moved over to um, SOE during the Secrets of Fadewar expansion, and then left there in 2015 to do a completely different thing and go off to Afghanistan and fly UAVs and support in the army. So the
So
start.
what you're
Go ahead.
saying is you've played video games your entire career. I'm sure you love hearing that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the job, right? We get to play games every day. No. So I'll go back to the beginning. I was, for a long time, a network engineer. I worked at SurfNet, which, if anybody's followed EQ's history over the years, they know that name for some reason. And basically, SurfNet was the internet provider where 989 had hosted the EQ servers when it first launched. And as it turned out, I was on call the day that EQ launched and the day that EQ broke SurfNet's internet.
We've
And I was,
posted we've posted a link to the article about that. Folks have
yeah,
posted that several times in here. It's crazy what happened. Yeah.
yeah. So I was one of the people, I wasn't the primary guy, but I was one of the people that was supposed to go up and help out, try to get things back functioning. So my first interaction with Smed was Smed really pissed off that his game had gone down, and it was kind of our fault, right? So anyway, but you'd fast forward, and so I had been I'd changed around, and I wound up at Intuit, you know, the people that make TurboTax and Quicken and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I was a senior engineer there. And at some point, they decided, hey, we want to move all of our database operations and server and network infrastructure out to Michigan. It was either Michigan or it was somewhere in Texas, some horrible place that I didn't really want to go either way. So I found myself out of a job. And as a random thing, a buddy of mine was like, hey, I'm going up to this racetrack in Central California. Do you want to go? And I was a big racing and car enthusiast kind of guy. So I drive up there with him and we do this track day thing, right? It's 2 days long. We're flinging our cars around this racetrack and whatnot. And who do I meet but Brad McQuaid and David Gilbertson, who were up there just kind of, you know, screwing around with cars as well. Random
Okay.
chance encounter, right? And I knew who Brad is from EverQuest, of course, because I've been a player since day one. And it was my second job when I was into it. I would work into it for 8 hours a day, go home and play EQ from like 6 at night to 2 in the morning, like every single day. That was my life, right? So I see Brad, and I just introduced myself, and I said, you know, I know who you are, and I see this was just when he had started Sigil, right? So it was Sigil. It was pretty young in the kind of infancy of the company at that point. And they were making
Hmm.
Vanguard, and I said, you know, I said, hey, you know, if you ever need a network engineer, you know, I'm your guy. And he's like, well, we already got that covered, but you know, we kind of became acquaintances at that track day thing, and at the end of it, He's like, look, I don't have any work for you. He goes, but I'm getting my new Ferrari in a little while, and when I get it, I'll send you an email, and you can come up, check out the car, and look at the game. And I was like, yeah, cool, because I figured, get my foot in the door in some way, keep in
Yeah.
contact, and maybe that'll pan out. So, sure enough, a couple months later, I get this email that just says it's here. That's all the email said from Brad, and so I call him up, and I'm like, it? He goes, yeah, it's here. You need to come up. I'm like, okay. Jump in my car, drive up to the Sigil offices, and I met a bunch of the guys on the team. I met Bill and Salim and
Mm-hmm.
Kaposi and
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, all these, and Lawrence, and all these people who were the shapers, if you will, of early EQ and that kind of stuff. And we go and we race around Carlsbad in his Ferrari and basically race hell for about an hour, and then go have lunch. And I go back to the facility, and I drop the little hint again, hey, you need any network people yet? He's like, no. But he goes, we are opening up some associate design positions. And all I kept thinking was, man, I don't know if I can handle that kind of a pay cut. Not thinking that because I had left my job at Intuit, associate designer pay was more than zero.
That's true. That is true.
And so I went and I talked to my wife, and I'm like, I got this suggestion to. She's looked at me and she just goes, matter of factly, she's like, do you want to do it? She's like, if you want to do this, we can figure out a way to make this work.
Oh, that's badass.
And I was like, you know what? I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. And so I called up Brad and I said, yeah, I want it. And he says, well, I can't get you the job. I'm not going to go around my guys and just give you the job. He's like, but I'll get you an interview. And he goes, and what you do after that is up to you. Right? And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go in and I interview with Bill, Lawrence, Salim, Darren McPherson, John Kaposi, Steve Burke, Brad, Jeff Butler, and Travis Williams, who was the producer, and Marius Enge, who was real big on Anarchy Online. He was a big when that happened, right?
Yeah, I was like, I remember the name. I was like, where do I know the name from?
He was an Anarchy Online guy. Anyway,
yeah.
So we go through the interview, and they're asking me questions like, on this on-demand creativity thing, like give me 4 elf names, go 4 dwarves, and I'm like, okay, and I get through all that, and at the end of it, I'm thinking the interview went really well, and Brad shows me around the offices, and we sit down and we look at the game for some. I get to see Vanguard in its very early state, and I'm like, super excited about the whole prospect. And on the way out, I run into Bill again. And Bill looks at me, and I'll never forget this. He looks at me and he says, what's the biggest mistake we made in EverQuest? Just like out of the blue like that.
Yeah.
And I said, armor die. And he went, why? Why armor dies? Because, you think about all the mistakes that had happened during the EQ era. I'm like, why? He's like, why armor die? It was like simple. So the east EC Tunnel was our trade location, right? It was where everybody came and they shouted out, I got this for sale, I got that for sale. And when somebody came up to me, and I remember the character too, because I wound up being in a guild with him. I was a troll warrior named Big Nose the Basher. And he was a warrior in full cobalt, head to toe. Just dark blue, gorgeous warrior armor. And I played a warrior at the time. And you knew instantly looking at somebody what they had done and where they had been, because of the armor they wore. And the armor dies allowed anybody to look like anything they wanted, and it took that away completely, and it took some of the immersion away from the game for me. So that's why I was like, that's why armor dies were the biggest mistake. And he just looked at Brad and went, we should hire him. And that was it. And that's when I left. And 2 weeks later.
And that was Fisher?
That was Fisher, yeah.
Yeah, I can picture the whole scene and visually.
And so that was where it all started, kind of thing, right? And about 2 weeks later, I get the call from Travis, and they said, hey, we'd like to offer you a job. And I was like, yep. He's like, I haven't told you how much money it pays yet. I'm like, don't care, want it.
It's more than zero. It's more than zero, and I get to work with you guys. It's pretty badass.
These were people that literally shaped the game that I had spent years playing, and I was like, yeah, I got to get on board with this. I don't care. And so I went to work at Sigil, and I was there for 2 years, and it was insanely frustrating and incredibly rewarding in its own way. People that I met at that company, I'm still very good friends with today, which, the relationships that we have in our life are that kind of immeasurable positive in your life. You know, you can't. I could call up Lawrence today, for example, and it would just be like we were working together yesterday. It's just that kind of a familiarity when you've been in the trenches with somebody like that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and as you I'm sure have been through it, the trenches being the crunch at the end of a project where the last 6 weeks of the project were 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. It's just I wouldn't wish that on anybody today, but we did it. We slogged through it, and then Vanguard launches, and it's not what we had hoped, unfortunately, because of a number of factors. But and as you've been in this industry long enough, you've been on the wrong side of a layoff. It happens, and
Yeah.
ultimately, I got caught on the wrong side of the layoff because they only had so many people that SOE would bring over, and they had to make cuts.
Yeah.
And it sucks, and it's really painful, and there's no way for it to feel good about being one of the guys that are on the outs. So I go home, and this ties into who Brad was to me as far as a friend. And sorry.
Yeah.
So, unbeknownst to me, Brad, feeling really horrible about me being one of the guys let go, obviously because we're friends, he calls up Clint Worley and says, who's producer of EQ at the time, and says, "This is a guy you need to look at."
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't asked Brad. I hadn't talked to Brad. Brad went out and did this on his own. And I get this call from Clint about a month after the whole layoff at Sigil, and he says, "Hey, I got your resume here, and I want to see if you'd be interested in coming to work on the EQ team. Want to come in and interview?" I had no idea how this all happened, and so I go down and I interview, and it's with like 11 people. It's this big round table in this big meeting room, and it feels like just a firing squad. And it's
I gotta say, dude, you mentioned that earlier, like before we started,
yeah,
and
it was
I almost said it
insane.
then, but I was like, it's cool to see that carried over because we did that shit to a few people, and I look back on it, I'm like, it must have just been horrible to be the designer sitting across from the entire design team when it was like 10 or 14 or 15 people.
It was intimidating, I won't lie, but it's guys like Travis McGathy, who was the lead designer at that time,
Mm.
uh, Ryan Barker,
Mm.
um, Akil may have been in there, I don't remember, but Holly,
Mm.
Mash, Abzor, who is, despite being one of the most curmudgeonous people I've ever met, also one of the greatest people I've ever met, and
Absolutely.
he's an absolute asset on the team. You really need to get him on, by the way.
I
He's
want
amazing.
to so bad, dude. I love that guy so much. He's
Um,
such just a great guy.
Harvey Burgess, John
Mm.
Troy was in there. All these guys. Ian
Mm.
was just a scripting wizard in the systems. All these guys, and so they're rapid fire questions at me, and I'm answering all these questions, and it's going really well. It feels really good, and I remember this to this day. I don't remember who said it, but um, they asked me, what my language background. I'm like, oh, I love to write. I love to, I have a strong connection with the English language. And somebody in front of the whole team goes, "Yeah, it'd be really great to finally have somebody who can write a complete sentence." And I saw Holly's face turn red, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Because Holly was an English major, I think, or something like that. She had a lot of experience. She was like the narrative lead at that point or something. So, and this is where it gets real funny. Um, at the end of the meeting, they asked me, "What's your greatest memory from EverQuest?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got this one. This one's easy." So on my server, which was Drizzle Row at the time, there were really 3 high-end guilds. We were kind of all competing during the play nice rules. We had an arrangement where we would kind of rotate on all of the major bosses in the game at that point. Well, at some point that all breaks down, and there's now this open warfare for whoever can get to the major bosses. And like TOV was a big deal, and so I'm like, okay, this one's easy. So there was this guild on our server called Mythic Legion, and we called them the Mythic Zerg because they really just like threw overwhelming numbers at bosses until they died. Whereas my guild, which was Haas at the time, uh, prided ourselves in doing things with small numbers, right? So somehow we got a mage that was like bugged faction, and they could go into TOV and they were not aggro to the key. I think it was Keepers of Vishan, the ones in the back behind the open entry area. So she could just walk all the way to where the Plane of Mischief entrance was, which was kind of this safe little cubbyhole. So Mythic Legion is set up to fight Lord Arianar, which was the entry dragon to TOV. And I was one of the guys, and we get back, and we all COH, Call of Heroes, back to this entry point, and they're flinging just dead bodies at this dragon. Well, we're in there with like 35 people, and we just start killing the dragons along the way in the back of TOV. And they're petitioning GMs because they're like, there's no way in hell these guys can be killing dragons like this with 35 people. We're out here in front failing with 104 people or whatnot. And I remember at one point we aggroed. We were fighting one dragon. We aggroed the dragon we called Fish, which was Lord Koi Doken. It was a Chinese dragon-shaped one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And myself, a druid, a shaman, and a mage just kept that thing at bay. I was the tank. Had a shaman and the druid healing me, and the mage just dropping mod rods as fast as she could to keep them in mana. And they're laughing in open chat in the zone about, oh, you guys are screwed now. You got 2 dragons. I'm not dying. I'm using all my disciplines, and I'm keeping this dragon at bay. And the guild kills the other dragon, and we come racing in, and we whack this dragon, and it's all done. And they're just like, this is bullshit. What the hell's going on there? They're like, they're petitioning again, going, we have to be exploiting somehow. And anyway, so we go through and we wipe out every single dragon in the zone. Every single dragon in TOV except for the ring event for Vulak, because we didn't bother with that. And we all ported out literally just as they beat Lord Arianar and come racing in to find an empty dungeon. And it was like, this is my best thing ever. This is my best moment in EQ. And as I'm saying this, I see Holly start to sink lower and lower in her chair, and she's looking more like looking at her notepad and not paying attention. And at the end of the interview, she comes over to me and she goes, "You have no idea what that event did to my guild." She goes, "I was in Mythic Legion, and our guild broke up because so many people were angry about that event." Like, she's like, "You literally broke my guild."
So
and it was
we're gonna have Holly on and get her side of this story at some point.
You should, because that'd be hilarious. So anyway, so then I got the job there, and I started out as just a content guy, and I was, it's funny because I remember also, going to go back to Sigil a little bit. I remember when I first got into Sigil and we were using the tool set that we had to build the game, quests, put NPCs in. It was called Tome. And Todd Schmidt was one of the guys that worked on it, and Anita Sujarat was another one of the programmers that worked on this tool set. It was just, you remember Amanda Tarr? Amanda Poe. So her brother was also working on that, and he was in there and helping out. But I remember mentioning to Bill what a piece of crap this tool set was. Now, fast forward, I go work on EQ, and you can imagine what I run into working on EQ. People don't seem to grasp it. EQ was built with an Access database, an Excel spreadsheet, and a text editor.
Yeah.
Every bit of it. Every bit of the NPCs and quests and everything were all. That's how that was all put in. So in hindsight,
I love it so much still.
Oh yeah. But in hindsight, I would love to go back and talk to Bill and go, "Yeah, you were so right that what we had in Vanguard was so infinitely better than anything on EverQuest." I'm like, oh my god. So that was how I wound up on EQ, and then through just a couple of years here and there of people leaving the team. When I started out, the EQ team was big by my not big like Vanguard big, but for an existing product that was just a live game that we were developing content for, there was a lot of designers on there. And
yeah, how many people could you? Okay, real quick,
Jesus.
one second, guys. I just realized, because Doug's got this fantastic voice, and I've got my headphones actually turned up so I can listen to the deep, rich sounds. Was there an echo earlier? You know what? Even if there was, what am I going to do about it? There's nothing I can change about it. We'll just have to. We'll have to reshoot this, fix it in post. No, perfect. All right. Thank you for the follows, folks. I will catch up after we're done talking, but thank you for being here. I don't think we missed any questions so far, but Doug, you're keeping an eye out as well. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Cool. Back at it then. How big was the team?
So, God, I don't remember exactly, but I would guess there was something like 12 or 15 designers and a lot of programmers. and that's funny. I've gotten the Kevin Nealon thing before. So it was a much bigger team, right? And it felt like we could get so much done. And then over the years, the teams got smaller and smaller as people got pulled off to go on to new projects. People got pulled off onto EQ Next or Free Realms. Free Realms, I worked on that for a little bit, but um, it slowly got smaller and smaller. And so the axiom was always do more with less. That's what we just, because it was our job. What could we do? We had to just put our head down and make shit happen,
Yeah.
and that was including the programmers who did we had some coders on our team that just did miracles with what they had available and made miraculous advancements with the game itself and things that we just thought you can't do it. And then they just kept pushing and to get it to where it is. And there's things in the game that they've done today, like guys like Terry Michaels, brilliant programmer, absolutely amazing, did some incredible. Steve Klug was incredible, and now Jen Chan as was their lead. She's now the studio head at Darkpaw. But they did things, and there's a bunch of other programmers. I'm not trying to discount anybody else's work because there was a bunch of other great programmers along with it. But I think back of how this thing started out as the Tannerus engine, right? That's what really kind of EQ grew out of initially, was Tannerus, and then it's 22 years old now, and like they're still getting capabilities out of it that they didn't think were possible 10 years ago. It's amazing to me what the guys are doing. I'm still blown away by what they can do.
I mean, it's almost like the human body. It's probably over that time, it's probably shed almost all of itself and been replaced with new
possibly
changes and updates and shit like that. Because even during my time there, it was things of like they had reworked the network code. We redid the combat system. We did for better or worse, graphics engine how many times. So, but I'm sure most of the duct tape and chicken wire is still there. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it still ran on the the Uzen scale, and there was still all those things where like they would repurpose a field in the database to do something completely out of whack. Like you put this value into their faction table and now it's a traitor, and like all that kind of shit was just bizarre.
Yeah, fair point. As soon as I said it, I was like, actually, there's so much that you couldn't replace that shit. There's no telling what would have happened. Yeah.
No, there's no way. That's the biggest problem. Is like, I think even when I was there was we didn't know what we didn't know kind of thing in a lot of ways. There was so much weird shit in the code that
Well, there's so much weird in just the fucking data. Like,
yeah,
I know between Burke and me, there were probably so many time bombs sitting there with the random invisible men and all that other bullshit.
Well, it wasn't just Burke. I want to say it was Miller, but there was somebody who scripted his own pathing.
No, that was Miller, and and if that's not Miller, this isn't like a official show. We didn't say your first name. You can't sue me, but I do believe when we got scripting, a young person whose name might have sounded like Racing Filler did do some weird stuff with scripting, and yeah.
So I mean, it was just like, and you still find those things, and so the way this is the craziest thing. The way I learned the database, Travis basically said, go find a bug in the database and fix it. He goes, that's the best way to learn because it has you dive into all the tables. And I picked something that was close to me, which was the Warrior Epic had stopped working at some point.
Okay.
And what it turned out was there was a script that was just missing. Like somehow somebody had just deleted it. So it's somewhere along the way, like 3/4 of the way through the original Warrior Epic, there was a script there that just didn't work anymore. And
well, I guess because people had gone back and retrofitted content with scripts and stuff. Oh yeah.
To take out some of the, God, what was that? What was that thing called? It was the numeric values that were basically pre-created. What was that? NCDs? Yeah, the NCD system.
Yeah, NCDs.
Yeah. NCDs,
God bless them.
So,
I love them.
God damn. So there were many instances where to make things better and more streamlined and more predictable, they had replaced the NCDs with a script, and so this was one of those ones that just vanished. So I had to kind of figure out what it needed to do and recreate that, and it made it personal, and it made me grasp the whole system a lot easier. Actually, it really worked. It really did what Travis was trying to get me to do, which was learn the system. Anyway, so yeah, over the years, as people left, there were opportunities to tackle new things, and like the guy who was handling the alternate advancement system went to work on DCUO, which, he's like, hey, do you want to learn the AA stuff? And I was like, yeah, I'll help out. And what that really meant was, hey, I'm leaving in a week and a half, and the system's yours. Bye.
Yeah.
so that's how I took over the AA stuff and how I was making doing system stuff. And then again, I went over to Free Realms, and when I came back, there was this kind of trying to split up the division of work, and we had a content group and a systems group, even though we were all doing content because the team was small.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I wound up leading the system side with Ed Harden, who was Aristo, who was a GM at the time, probably when you were there.
Yeah, he was.
He took over spells from Carricker when Carricker became lead designer, and Julie Burness, who's now Julie Palou, works on World of Warcraft. Actually, used to work on World of Warcraft. She just left and went to Riot, I think, to work on their new game. But she was the content lead, and then talk about full circle. Brad came back to the team to work, and he just wanted to be a content designer, and so he came on, and ultimately he got cut up in one of the layoffs again, and it was just really kind of a tumultuous time. But over the years, go ahead.
What period expansion wise, since that's one of the best units of measure in my mind, what period was that? Do you remember?
When Brad was there, or when?
So basically what you're describing, like it feels like that was a chunk. Brad, but also
chunk.
the other stuff.
It's a big chunk. I got to think. I got to look it up. Hang on a second.
We've got a suggestion of Reign of Fear.
That is possible. It was the expansion where we tried to do Eldon 2.0. If that doesn't bring back any horrific memories.
Well, I remember Eldon 1.0, so if you wanted to do that in a less insane way, then maybe that makes sense.
It was a less insane way, but still insane. We called them heroic adventures. But
so
they
we've
were
got
basically the same thing.
Call of the Forsaken?
Possible.
Wacky Marv and Dansor, thank you for your suggestions.
Yeah, it was Call of the Forsaken. So Brad worked on it, came back to him then. It's amazing how fast my brain has just sort of, put that stuff away because I'm not there anymore. It's only been
Your memory's been better than mine, dude. I don't remember anything. These people don't even believe that I worked on the game.
So it was yeah, we started trying to do that, and Brad was on the team for a while, and that was a big it was a weird it was almost surreal. It's like, this is the guy that was part of the trio that was the brainchild behind this game, and now he's coming back to just kind of work on it. And everybody kept saying, "Oh, Brad, you need to take the reins again and make the game great." And he felt really uncomfortable because it was like, he's like, "I'm just here as a designer, man. I'm not trying to run anything. I'm not trying to that's not my thing." And he felt really uncomfortable by it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because, especially after having gone through everything we went through up at Sigil, and the Sigil thing hurt Brad more than people will ever understand. Sorry to get a little somber on this, but
no, not at all, dude.
It destroyed him emotionally. He felt like we were all his family. He felt like the company was his child, kind of thing. And it physically, mentally, and spiritually ravaged him. And he took a lot of shit. Admittedly, some of it deserved, which he took on. He wore on his sleeve. He took it, and I don't think he ever recovered from it. Truthfully, it crushed him.
I mean, it's a big one, right? I mean, it's such a personal investment, both as a leader, as a creative individual, as someone that's passionate.
Yeah. And he was all of those things. And he took a lot of shit from people ruthlessly for some of the way things went down. And and then he stands up the new company Visionary Realms, and he's trying to do Pantheon, and again, people are just attacking him in a way that it they were acting like Brad had physically gone over and beat their dog with a stick or something. It was amazing to me, the level of vitriol that came out. And some of the things that, some of the ways they went about things I don't really agree with, but all that stuff, he tried to put on the thick skin and say, I'm just going to push through, and in a lot of ways he did, but it crushed him. It was brutal. And people are people, and they're going to have their opinions, and you can't really tell people they can't have their opinions, but people don't really understand how dedicated, how good in general a person Brad was, how fiercely loyal he was to his friends. And I got another perfect example of that, and I don't know that anybody would ever do this. Back when my father passed away, I got a nice little chunk of money, as a inheritance kind of deal. I wasn't rich by any means or anything like that, but it was nice. And I completely fucked up my taxes, like beyond description, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I didn't ask anybody. And I wound up in the hole like 12 grand. And Brad was just like, "Hey man, what's the matter? You seem kind of down." And I kind of just like, I feel really weird and shitty about this. I go, but I blew a lot of money doing stupid shit. I bought a lot of dumb toys and whatnot, and I'm in the hole for 12 grand. And I just felt like a jackass about it. And 3 days later, he shows up with a check for $12,000 and goes, "Pay me back when you can." And completely unsolicited. That's just who he was. He was such a genuinely good person that most people never got to see, and it crushes me to think that he's gone. And it sorry.
Yeah.
When I was in Afghanistan and I heard that he had passed away, it was shocking, but it wasn't in a way, because of how just beat down the whole situation had gotten him. But it really, really hurt that I couldn't come home for the memorial. I couldn't get to say goodbye. I need a second, sorry.
Yeah, dude, take a moment. We occasionally experience some feels on this stream, and yeah.
I saw Bill's talk with you, and he got emotional about it too. And I thought, nah, I'm stronger than that. That's not going to hit me. But people don't understand what an amazing guy he was, and what an amazing friend he was. I owe my career to that friendship in games. I owe my career in games to that friendship. I owe some of the best working time of my life to Brad, and everything he did. And he's not somebody. He's the kind of friend that comes along once in your life. Maybe you just don't. People don't know. If they weren't friends with him, they can't understand just how amazing the guy was. And we all and people attacked him as though they were perfect, and everybody makes mistakes, and everybody does dumb shit, and yeah, it just, that one really hurt, especially because I couldn't come home. I was 8,000 miles away working, and I could not come home. So, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, being here, it's been one of those reminders, because the folks that are here, mostly, I would say, if someone is watching a Twitch stream on a 22-year-old game, there's been a lot of appreciation, respect, and hindsight, I think, that I've seen in chat here. Just based on the fact that none of us would be here if it wasn't for Brad, if it wasn't for Smed, all the contributions and sort of the risk that they took early on, we wouldn't be here. And then there are a lot of us. I wouldn't have this career either. I wouldn't be sitting in Sweden right now if it wasn't for this game. And then there are people I wouldn't have met my spouse. I wouldn't have done all this other shit, right? Or I wouldn't have gotten into game development, because when I was 12, I started playing EverQuest, right? So, man, people get it for sure. We just weren't. Well, I mean, I wasn't 12 at the time. I'm
I
not
was
that far
31 in
behind you.
'98 when it came out. I was 31 when it came out.
Okay, you're a little bit older, dude. I'll give you that. I mean, you're a little bit grayer than I am, but you've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
more
yeah.
hair, so that's
Well, there's
awesome.
that. There's that. You know, so I don't want to. I don't want to make. I don't want to get. I don't want to get make this super depressive or anything like that. But um, all I'll say is Brad was a fiercely loyal dude who, despite his shortfalls, which we all have, he really did try to be a good person. And when a lot of the turmoil happened with Visionary Realms, he was going through something that I wouldn't wish on anybody. People don't know it, but his wife passed away a month after he did. She had cancer. They'd been fighting it for a long time, and they never talked about it because they didn't want to keep it. They didn't want to make any noise
I
about
had
it.
no
But yeah,
idea.
she passed away just before New Year's Eve. Yeah, which left his now 22-year-old daughter by herself. You know,
Most,
no support
I
structure
yeah,
really. Yeah,
I hadn't heard that from anybody else to date. Like I had
yeah,
no idea.
yeah. So you know, like I say, people like to give Brad a lot of shit for things he did, but desperate people do desperate things, and they're not always. It's not because they're bad people necessarily. It's, you know, I couldn't imagine if my wife was dying and I had, you know, I couldn't imagine what I would do to try and fix it. So
Yeah.
I don't I let that shit go. It's and I really hope other people will too. You know,
And
it's anyway.
I would say,
Yeah,
looking at my hindsight, during that period, right? Like when folks left to start Sigil, and it was basically that whole sort of second wave crew, or because I kind of picture like there was the original team that then led
yeah,
to the next team where if I've got the chronology right, but some of them I knew were coming in, like Steve and others, like Burke,
yep,
but Poe was there, and Kendrick and all these folks. Like
yeah,
I see them as kind of like the second wave, maybe they're 1.5, and then we were like the crew that
sure,
came after that. We were apprentices.
sure,
They left and opened that spot for us, and I look at it and
yeah.
I'm like, we there's this like, and maybe it's not just youth because I know I hear it from people that they're older, they should know better, they should be more mature, but there's like this zero sum game mentality of like during that time, we were kind of like, oh, they're going to start a new company. Well, we're going to continue to make this game the best shit ever. Oh, they're doing what? Why would they do that? And it's like this hyper competitiveness that you then like nitpick at flaws and stuff. And I've
Um,
seen that in the past where there can't be two games, or you know what? It's not okay for this person to not like this game, or
well, it is a little competitive because you're kind of all competing for the same player base, right? You're competing for the same. What we thought at the time was you're competing for the same player base. I don't think. I mean, you think about what EQ was in its heyday. It was like five hundred
I
and ten
yeah,
thousand
I
players,
usually
something
stop at
like that,
about
right?
five hundred
Something like that,
thousand
right?
subs.
Nobody could have imagined the player base being 15 million people, which is what WoW got up to at one point, right? That's people who haven't thought about that don't really run the numbers. Realistically, that game was making over $1 billion a year in gross revenue.
Yeah. Dude,
You know, but
Roblox has 150 million monthly active users,
it's insane. That's
and we're
insane.
we're we're scrapping over the same 400,000,
Five,
500,000
right,
players.
right, and so I understand the competitive aspect of it. I didn't understand, and I still don't understand some people's refusal to try other games. It's not like me going out and saying, "Hey, you know, World of Warcraft is a pretty good game." It's not saying that EverQuest is a shit game because I like this other game. But a
And I
lot of
think that's
people
what I
seem to
mean.
get that. Yeah, a lot of people seem to get that mentality. It was really kind of weird. Like, I liken it back to high school, and I'll put this back in my day in high school, which was a long time ago, mind you. We had the Judas Priest crowd and the Iron Maiden crowd, and if you liked one, you hated the other band. It was like because you wore their T-shirt to school, and it was like, wait a second, these are both good bands. How do you
I went to high school in Dothan, Alabama. My dad retired at the Army base in Dothan, Alabama. So,
Okay.
fortunately for me, the Iron Maiden crowd and the Judas Priest crowd would be the same crowd because we were
Oh, okay.
probably being chased by the Hank Williams crowd, who I now
Oh, all right.
appreciate. But
All right.
yeah, you had
Yeah, in Southern
options.
California, it was like I like Judas Priest, and they're like, "Fuck you, man! Iron Maiden's the best band ever." And it's like, so you had this kind of, and it's kind of like the same thing. It's this weird thing, like I have in my career tried to play just damn near everything. I want to see all the games. I've tried every major MMO released out there, partially in professional curiosity to see what they're doing, but also because I just love games.
Yeah.
And I still dedicate the priority of my time to one game that I happen to be playing at the time. But yeah, there was definitely a weird kind of feeling that if you liked this one game, you were saying that the other game was crap, and it's just like that didn't make any sense to me. And maybe that is a maturity level thing. I don't know.
I do
But
think
like
some
right
of
now,
it was tapping into the thing we were discussing maybe before the stream started, which was the EverQuest team. And again, I don't want to speak for the whole team. It may have just been my problem, to be honest with you. But so we were this team that we were generating, I mean, the bulk of the revenue for the company. And at the time, the company grew to be 7 studios throughout the world. We would have we'd have our presentation once a year, twice a year, and look out at a sea of like 500 people or something looking at us. And
yeah,
then we were experiencing things like, oh, you don't really have a marketing budget for this expansion, right? We'd get our 50 grand or 60 grand or something. And, we have key talent getting yanked off on
yeah,
occasion, stuff like that. And so for us, it kind of also made us, it was like us against the world, if that makes sense. And I
yeah.
think it built
It
some of
does.
that.
No, it does. It does. I still think I look at what has been done with EverQuest and the team. Um, what the teams over the years have been able to do with the resources they had. Because first of all, not even SOE had any inkling this game was going to be around 22 friggin' years for one,
No
right?
way. Yeah.
So, so constantly we were in a battle of, well, EQ's not going to last forever, so we got to take the revenue for it and make our next big game because the company has to survive. And it's a reasonable business decision. I get it. But the guys who were on the EQ team consistently dealt with that and kept making good product and kept making
Mm-hmm.
fun stuff to play, and that's a testament. The fact that the fact that EQ is still there now, 28 expansions in or something like that. I think. Let me see what's the number now. 26. Sorry, 26. The fact that the game is still there and still generating good revenue, and that it says a lot about what was done before me and what's been done after me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just one I was just one part of this grand puzzle that is the EverQuest development team. And like I think I told you before the stream started, I would love to get people from all of the ages of this game development over the years into one brewery to sit down and have a beer and just bullshit with each other. I think it'd be amazing, just a collective of EverQuest. You know what I mean? I think it'd be crazy, but I would love to
Yeah.
do it somehow.
That would be such an experience.
Wouldn't it? Like to sit down and talk with Trost and with um, Rich again. I'd love to see Rich again. I haven't seen Rich in 10 years. Dude is
Yeah.
dude is one of the most gifted guys. Um,
And
phenomenal developer.
and just outstanding person. That was one of those things that
Yeah,
kept.
yeah,
I
yeah,
keep
yeah,
saying it.
yeah.
People probably think it's like my generic default shit to say about people, but I'm
No,
like,
man.
no, this is just like a solid human being. Um,
So I can honestly say that there weren't, and I came fortunately after some of the real shitbag periods of people that there were certain people on EQ that were really kind of, I like to call shitbags, and but
that's a military
like
term,
everybody
folks.
like everybody I worked with were just great people, and you know, Carricker is one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. Uh, uh, Vancouvering is the most ornery, curmudgeony, cantankerous son of a bitch I've ever met, maybe in my life. But he's also one of the best people. He's such a good dude, and he'll hate me for saying this, and he'll never admit it. but we got along so well and worked so well on that team. It was so much fun. He was such a fun guy to work with. Um,
And
let's see, Wacky Marv. No, no. Dave is. I really wanted to avoid throwing anybody under the bus, but Dave Georgeson is one of two people that I will never work with again in my life, anywhere, for any capacity. Never again. So anyway, um, yeah, Vancouvering was phenomenal. Ryan, I still remember the fire right hand shit, you know. uh, and Ryan is another one of those guys that is a phenomenal developer, and I'm not surprised in the least at his success and what he's transitioned into being a programmer now at Amazon. And Travis McGathy was fun to work with. I mean, all these people. Holly was one of the best producers. I mean, I was fortunate to work with some really good people. Like I say, I worked with Clint Worley, who was a great producer, but Holly and Akil in the creative director role. But Holly, man, they had no fear of pushing upwards, which for a long time we didn't have that. Um, we had because we were just EQ, and we were going to be the old news once the new hotness came out. We got shit on sometimes by senior management, and they had no fear of pushing upward and go, no, fuck you, we're making money, we're the ones making money for this company. And I will always love them for it. Holly was an amazing person to work with and for. And like I said, we've talked about it too. Akil is one of the most genuine people, period. Not in the games industry, but just one of the most genuine people.
yeah, for sure, dude.
Full stop.
And and it's cool. It is cool to hear that stuff as well, because like, I mean, when I was there, again, this is, as we discussed, this was before you were on the team. Like, I remember basically, I remember pretty much all these names as they're coming onto the team, right? I think it was kind of those early days. It was like me and Rich and Ryan. You know, like Rich was the one with actual experience, but Ryan and I like coming up through the apprentice path, and Paul and all these guys. And then
Carrico,
we,
yeah. Hell
yeah,
yeah.
my God. And then we're hiring all these folks, and it's like, man, these people seem rad. Like, it always felt like we just got fortunate with the people that wanted to be on the team. And
I don't think that was it. I think the mentality really was uh, maybe unconsciously it was culture first. It's like, can I sit in a room for 15
yeah,
hours with this asshole?
yeah,
You know, can I stomach working with this jackass for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in crunch time?
yeah.
And after that, I mean, you can kind of teach people, assuming they're not complete morons. You can teach people this stuff. You can't teach people how to be not a dick.
Yeah, no, I know.
You know?
Here's this. This may be crass, and I don't know what the situation was like after I left. But one of the other questions that came up that was a litmus test for us, because I mean, we came in. I mean, we came in through customer service, most of us, and so
Yeah.
we were used to getting paid by the hour in San Diego, and it wasn't easy
Oh,
to make a life
oh,
initially. And then we got into the royalty
no.
pool, and
Yeah.
a question that came up was, does this person deserve to be in our royalty pool? Do we want to work with them? Do they add value? Do they deserve to
I
be
can
in
see
here
that.
with us?
I can see
Right?
that.
And
I can totally see that. I remember Ryan telling us the horror stories about the EQ house. You know, when they were
oh
in
god, yeah.
CS, four guys living in a house trying to you know, with pizza boxes and trying to just survive on the pittance they were getting in CS. Or you know, I remember that. I never had to work that, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view. But
They had good parties
yeah,
though.
I believe it. I believe it. Um, but I remember that stuff, and yeah. When I think about the people I worked with, there were on the EQ team proper, there were maybe one or two people that were just kind of like, they're a little sideways maybe, but nothing too out of whack. There was one. Like I say, I don't want to get into the negatives, but most of the people were just amazing people. And crunch time was rarely, if ever, a producer or somebody standing over you with the sword of Damocles ready to just stab you. It was people going, I need to put this work in because I'm unwilling to send shit out the door. That's what crunch time was for a lot of us. And yeah, we joked, Alan, Carricker, and those guys, we all joked that what really needed to happen was we needed a real world game dev, where we had MTV in there or somebody in there just doing a documentary on what the reality of game development was like.
Nick just
Because
said
you see,
something like that.
it's there's that TV show, I think it's called Devs or something like that out there, or something. I forget what it's something like
No,
that.
Devs
What is it?
is the one that's more sci-fi. That's actually a decent show.
Oh, okay. That's
But
the one
no,
I'm
there's
thinking
another
of.
one that everybody keeps mentioning. I haven't seen yet because I've got to see if I can even get it in Sweden. Chat, you know the show, Mystic Quest on Apple
Mystic Quest.
Plus.
That's it. That's it. So some of that stuff, it's Hollywoodized, right? But some of that stuff is on point, man. Some of that shit is. I think about the shit that gets said and the way things happened. And and I do believe it would make good TV. Not chaotic, because we were never throwing things at each other, unless you're Jeff
uh,
Calder, who threw a chair in a meeting once.
yeah, I was about to say
You know,
you missed that period. There was a period
I
from
could
Jeff
top that
throwing
one.
on. I heard there was some shit that happened in a different building. Real quick, we
Yes, there
have
were.
4 questions that we can run
Yeah,
through pretty
yeah, 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 yeah.
quickly. Let's see. There was the retro. You've got the question. Did you think the game would last this long? We kind of covered
No,
that one though. I don't think anybody
we
did.
didn't.
There
Nobody,
was
nobody.
Turnip's
Um,
question. Sean claims to have been a dick when he was younger. That's not really a question. And we didn't work together. So, but he
yeah,
probably
it
heard I
happened.
was. Why
Um,
don't you like Smoke Jumper? We could probably skip that one for politeness sake. And okay,
yeah,
actually, there weren't a lot of questions.
I don't really want to go into too much on that one, but um, let's just say that how do I be diplomatic about this with Dave? So there was a meeting where we had with Dave where we were presenting our ideas to what we wanted to do for a feature set for the coming expansion we were working on. And this is a room full of combined play and development experience on EverQuest of probably 80 years, right? Between all of us, if you add it up, it's aggregate 80 years of experience in EverQuest. And I don't think Georgeson had ever actually played the game, and he called all of us stupid in the meeting. And I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Anyway,
You know what?
so we kind of, yeah,
Uh,
it's me, Akil, Carricker, Abzor, um, all these people who have invested basically their development life into this game, and he's calling us idiots for presenting what we think is a good feature set going forward. And I was just like, okay, I'm done with you. I got nothing for you anymore.
and I think
So
that's fair, man. Yeah, and that's one of those things where I don't think it's a weird one here, right? Because I try to stay super diplomatic. I don't use my usual language, my usual vocabulary, so that it's a safe space for
God,
guests to come in case maybe they don't have potty mouths.
so
Um, like I get it. I will say that what you're telling me though does not sound like some bullshit that you made up because one, we could probably get another source. Two, I was briefly on the Planet Side team, and when I
so you
left,
met him.
I worked with him for about a week or a month or something. I was there to potentially put in like, hey, how do we put in an economy and maybe deal with AI? I wrote up a
Yeah,
nice document. The artists were hyped on it. The programmers were hyped on it. I presented it, and I was told like basically never do this again or something along those lines. And I
yeah,
was like, without checking with me first, and I was like, that's cool. I think we're gonna go start a new project. And so then
yeah,
we started
yeah,
a new
yeah, yeah, yeah.
project. I was just like, I'm not gonna do this.
Right. And
So fair enough.
so as the perfect example of the problem, after that, like almost immediately after asking us if we were all stupid, he asked a couple of us, what do you guys do for cutscenes in the game? And I'm like, have you fucking played this game? Cutscenes? in EverQuest? Are you serious? And it was like, all right, I'm done with this nonsense. This is I'm just done with this entirely. Not with the game, just with him. And it was like, yeah, whatever. And Akil was like, he again, Akil being the just amazing person he is, was trying very hard to calm us down without stepping on Dave's toes, without. I mean, it was just one of those. It was one of those moments. I saw a question go by that is game development always this contentious? Yes, but not always this negatively contentious. Because
A fair point.
one of the things to remember about the people in the room when you're doing game development is all of us are passionate about what we're doing, or we wouldn't be there. And when that passion comes, you get passionate responses to questions and or projects. And so, everybody, when we would come and try to pitch our ideas for the next expansion, everybody thought their idea was amazing. That's just how it is. And so when you're trying to sell that idea, things can get passionate, heated, whatever you want to say. But it was never a negative thing. Like when I came with an idea for the killing of Khazak Thul, truly killing Khazak Thul, somebody who said I think my idea was better was not telling me my idea is shit. It was but it was passion. It was
Yeah.
so that was great. That was great passion. That was great, productive, communicative passion. It wasn't negative. Nobody was throwing shit at each other.
There was a lot of
So
like somebody else would then have to kind of throw their shit out there, and you read the room and you kind of go, okay, guys, well, what about this now? Does does Sean's idea, like, how does that work with Doug? What are we, and it becomes this
so
discussion of like,
it was, and a lot of the times that was either in when Akil was running things, that was his call because he was trying to, as the creative director, he was kind of driving the narrative of, because ultimately it's his responsibility, right? So he has to be the ultimate, yay nay kind of go thing. But more often than not, in fact, almost always, we as a team arrived at the decision ourselves. He never had to come in and go,
yeah,
you guys are all screwed up. Here's where we're going. It was, we all came to that kind of, arrived at the right place at the right time. But he still had to kind of shepherd and kind of corral us in like a goalie.
I was about to say, he also may have been using some Jedi mind tricks on you. That's
sure.
a
Without a
good
doubt.
a good lead, or a creative
Without a
director is like, these fools think they thought up all
Abso-friggin-lutely.
this shit.
Yeah, without a
Good
doubt,
job,
man.
guys. I love that idea. Let's do that.
So I'll use an example that Salim authored up at Sigil. Salim said he had two lists: people he would take a bullet for, and people he wanted to kill. And he was joking about the killing part, right? But Akil is one of those people I would put on my take a bullet list because he's just an amazing person to work with. Amazing. I would follow that dude into any trench anywhere in game development. He's the man, literally. Um, yeah. So, and
We
it's yeah. Rich is
we
another one of those guys. Rich was amazing. So
absolutely. I mean, honestly, I look back on that team, and it's just it's an easy list for me, right? Like,
yeah,
just no bullshit, really rad folks. As you
yeah.
said, over the
Other
years,
than the
there are
guy that
only a
got
few that.
other than the guy that like got a restraining order against another dev because she woke up and he was standing over her watching her sleep and shit like that. That was a little weird.
Yeah, well, we're gonna, you know what, we're gonna we're gonna offline that one. There's been some fun offline discussion on that topic. Chat's gonna be
I
like
wouldn't say,
immediately like,
I wouldn't
what?
say it's been
No,
fun. It's been yeah.
no.
Anyway, I
um,
wanted to make one comment. You mentioned a thing about having to temper your normal vocabulary.
mm,
So I every year when I came back from Afghanistan for vacation, it took me a solid week, if not more, of really having to steel myself and not using my normal language
yeah,
because I know you wanted to keep this a little on the friendly side, but fuck isn't even a word, it's a comma.
yeah. No, it's it is definitely part of the punctuation.
Yeah,
No, I mean you can
completely.
say whatever you want. It's your VOD. I mean, honestly,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It was my wife and my daughter even would like go, like take a kind of slide back a little bit, like you need to dial that back a bit there, kid.
you've got the curse
So,
jar sitting over there
oh
with just
Jesus.
checks written in it.
Yeah, it's no room for coins even anymore. There's just straight bills in there.
There was a question earlier, and
Okay.
we've been pretty chill on the question front for this
Yeah, yeah.
one, because I mean there's so many great details and dirt
I
coming out
saw
even
one quick
without him.
real one that says, "What year's expansions was I there for?" So
Yeah, hit that, and then we've got another one.
I started on Secrets of Fadewar, and then it was Seeds of Destruction, Underfoot, House of Thule, Veil of Alaris, Reign of Fear, Call of Forsaken, Darkened Sea, and I started working on Broken Mirror, but I left the company before it launched. I went to fly the UAV stuff in Afghanistan. So,
Another
um,
question that came up was
yeah,
from Homestead Hacker. Can y'all
okay.
talk about the test team and how the dev team would interact with it? Interesting
I
question.
mean, are you referring to like the QA guys, the guys who would
Yeah.
test our work and stuff? Yeah. So, um, really, as we were developing content, part of our design docs, for literally everything we did, quests, missions, raids, what have you, we we would write in the design doc what our testing steps should be, and hand that off to them, and they would bang away on it and send us back, either bug reports in our bug tracking system or questions if like something wasn't clear. So it wasn't so much a face to face as much as it was just back and forth within the system, um, and then on the test server, we would regularly jump on the server with a bunch of guys who would play on the test server a lot. This isn't beta server. This was the test server that was up all the time. And sometimes we would watch kind of invisibly to see if things are working the way we want and how they were playing it out. And other times we would jump on and be visible and, um, ask questions, because,
Mhm.
um, the difficulty with asking people questions sometimes is subconsciously. Sometimes you get different answers because they know they're talking to a dev. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird. I don't. It's hard to
No,
get.
absolutely.
It's hard to get purely honest, and I don't mean to say they're dishonest, but it's hard to get purely honest, unfiltered feedback from players sometimes. Um,
Well, I mean,
no,
not
it
on
just is.
FOH boards or
No, definitely not there.
snooping various guilds while they're doing encounter. I would just honestly just sit and snoop people and watch them.
I did that a lot, and it really made me. It really entertained me when even 15 years into the development of the game, there were still players that felt that they said things in tells that we couldn't see it, and it's just like we can see everything you say at all times. There's nothing you can do about it. If you're using the in-game systems, we can snoop it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no bigger compliment than snooping certain guilds and having them describe something you work on as, well, this isn't complete shit. And I'm like,
Right.
right on,
I was I
great.
was I was fortunate for one of the events I did. I had that kind of experience, and it really wasn't. Somebody wasn't like, "Oh, this doesn't completely suck." It was more like, "Hey, this was actually fun. Like this must be broken because it's actually kind of fun."
That's
And
next level.
I was like, "Fuck yeah!"
Well, as soon as they're like, this was actually kind of fun, you're immediately going, what the hell is broken here?
I
Something
gotta
is
I gotta
not
fix
good.
something's not working right. I gotta go in and fix this.
Yeah,
um,
when Zaid came in waved earlier, I was like, I've seen your I've seen your GM name, right? Because he's like,
let's see. Are there any more
he's like
questions here?
waving at Elidroth, and so I've heard a lot of people
Yeah.
reference you by your name and said that they know you from forums, etc. So it
Okay.
sounds like you've been out there.
I used to be super active on the SOE forum, the EQ forums when I was working there, and I used to get yelled at by our, community manager a lot
He's
because
an
I
FOH
was
troll, is what chat says. Yes, Bobby, is this true? Bobby
who
Bix
is
said you are an FOH troll.
I am.
Yeah,
That's
it's in
funny.
chat. It must be true.
I I knew a bunch of the guys in FOH, and it's a funny story actually. One of the guys who was real big in, FOH back in the day, was a guy that I played Quake with, and I was in an IRC chat channel. We were moderators in an IRC chat channel, completely unbeknownst to each other. No, not Alex, but I do know Alex pretty well. But this guy was like, he was like, "Oh yeah, I used to play Quake," and I was like, "What was your name in Quake?" And he told me, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I'm like, I said, "This was my name in the Quake channel." He's like, "Get the fuck out of here! That's not even possible that we've known each other all this time and didn't know each other." Turns out that was LK, who was one of the big guys in the landmark community, one of the big builder guys in the landmark community. And it's like this, so this like this sort of like small circle, 6 degrees of separation kind of nonsense, which is crazy to me. But no, I knew Alex. A lot of the guys that worked at Sigil, or not a lot of guys, but several guys at Sigil were in Fires of Heaven. And admittedly, when I was first playing EQ, Fires of Heaven was one of those motivational things. Like I watched the shit that those guys were discovering and beating in game, and it motivated me to try harder and play better and get into bigger guilds in the game. That was a cool time period of EQ in my opinion.
Yeah.
Alex was brash and he was loudmouth and he was sometimes wrong about shit that he was saying in EQ, but they really pushed the player base to be better in a lot of ways, I think.
Well, and the dev team, in my opinion, for
Yeah,
as
yeah.
much frustration as there was at times. I mean, it wasn't like there was a closeness there. I don't know what it's like to work at like a 50,000 person company or whatever on a video game. I've never done AAA. I don't know if there's that same
You were
feeling.
at SOE.
Yeah, I know.
You were
But
AAA before it was cool.
the fact that you could see that, like, there's a certain accountability that we felt for everything that we're working on. I said we on that one. If other people didn't feel that
We're getting
way,
a bunch of
sure.
questions here. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, am I
And
still playing
dude, you've
any
got a limited
MMOs?
amount of time, right?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay, great.
It said, so are you still playing any MMOs? Yeah, currently I play World of Warcraft, because who doesn't? I play a shit ton of Destiny 2 right now, which is more of an action item acquisition kind of thing with a bunch of close friends. I play Final Fantasy 14, which is grindy as hell, but brilliant storytelling. Those guys can make a game. I've played some Lord of the Rings Online. I've played, what do I have on my computer right now? Elder Scrolls, love that. And Elite Dangerous. I've been playing those a lot. So I tend to kind of bounce around from game to game to game when I'm on things, but the one that's got most of my attention right now is Destiny 2. I actually applied to work up there, and they filled the position before I was done with the process. But got a little insight into just what that is involved. That team is 750 people.
Oof.
Yeah,
No
making
thanks.
one friggin' game.
No thanks.
750 people. I couldn't imagine
What
that.
about on the horizon?
I mean, I'm real curious to see what Akil and those guys can do with Ashes of Creation. There's a lot of people working over there that, again, that I would follow into the fire. I mean, Kevin McPherson, the guy that was behind, Kunark,
Mm-hmm.
love that dude. One of the most gifted and insane programmers I've ever worked with.
Guest here
Akil,
Sunday.
yeah,
Kevin will be
he
here
is an
Sunday.
amazing dude. So I got a little story I want to go back to on Kevin at one point, but I want to finish the questions here first. So, I mean, I'm gonna try Pantheon. Absolutely, if they get the game out, I'm gonna try it
Mm.
because I owe it to Brad, and two, I always want to see what new things are coming out. Yeah, I'll play anything. I don't give a shit.
What about the next question? This is an interesting one. Zaid God. So Zaid asked Elidroth, how did devs slash staff generally feel about the TLP servers and players slash guilds versus live? Was TLP seen as the redheaded stepchild of EQ?
Absolutely not. TLP is kind of it's something that literally has borne this channel out, if you will, right? It's the nostalgia,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
up until I started playing on TLP, and up until I didn't realize how strong the nostalgia draw was. So TLP is absolutely not a redheaded stepchild.
Was it ever?
Huh? No, it was not. I don't know why. I
No.
don't know why. I'm not really understanding that question. I guess it's just TLP is in some ways, not some ways, it's directly responsible for the renaissance of EQ in a way. EQ is the numbers of, from what I understand, EQ's numbers have actually gone up as a result of TLP stuff. So, and for a 22-year-old game, that's insane. It's enough awesome. So no, I don't. Never a bad thing. TLP has always been a good thing. And it it kind of put that chase back into things. The difference is, of course, that we all know, if we've played the game for any length of time, we all know what is coming. It's not like it's a mystery. It's not like, when Velius opens, we don't know where to go. We all know exactly where to go and what to do and what equipment we need, and we know. So there's a little bit of a. It's not quite as it's not quite as fresh as it was. If there's anything I could change, if I was, king of the universe and there's anything I could change, it's that when new games came out, they weren't already completely mapped with websites telling you how to get from point A to point Z, because the discovery aspect of a new expansion in EverQuest was
Yeah.
magic. It was absolutely magical. The first time I stepped foot in Velius, holy shit, I felt overwhelmed, I felt scared, I felt all those things that you just don't get in games anymore, because nowadays, I mean, I look for a perfect example. I look at Shadowlands for WoW. I'm going to play it because I've already bought it and it's going to be fun. But by the time that expansion truly launches, there's websites that tell you how to do each and every quest and each and every step, and where all the and it's just not the same. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. We're never going to go back to that. But that would be my big change, because that period of discovery, when we didn't have all those internet sites like Caster's Realm or whatnot to go out and find that stuff, that was the magic time for MMOs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, what I wanted to go back to with Kevin. So we were working on Vanguard, and I was attaching animations to some of the characters' spell casting,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't working the way I wanted to, and I couldn't figure out how to make the timing look right. So when a guy casts a spell and the fireball goes and it hits the NPC, the NPC reacts properly, and there was no way to do this. And I was talking to Kevin. I'm like, this just looks like crap. I don't know how to make this work right. And I was honest. I'm like, maybe it's because I don't understand the Unreal Engine very well, or what the fuck is going on here. And he goes, we'll see if we can figure something out. The next morning I come in and he goes, hey, come over to my cube a second. And he had just completely written code to make the spell timing system function dynamically, such that guy casts fireball, he finishes the animation, fireball comes out of his hand, travels with time and velocity across a space, hits the NPC, and the NPC reacts. And I was just like, how did you do this? He goes, oh, I didn't go home. he's just he's he just saw a way around the problems and made shit happen. It's no surprise to me that he's lead coder over there. He's a witch with C++. Just super good.
I'm
Super.
I'm very excited to get a chance to talk to him. I don't
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know if our paths crossed
Well, he
when he
all
was at SOE or not. So,
yeah, he wrote all the lore for Kunark. It was his baby. So,
yeah. I know people here
and
are thrilled.
what was the golden time for EQ?
Yeah.
Golden age for EQ for me easily was I loved Velius. I absolutely loved Velius, but Planes of Power, man. Pop was Pop was everything I loved about the game, because it was interacting directly with the gods. It was the lore of the gods. It was the entire pantheon of the gods. That was gold for me. I loved that period of time. I loved Planes of Power. Absolutely loved everything about it. And we saw things, but we saw things in Velius that were unheard of in a game like that. Burke's Ring War, for example,
Mm-hmm.
insanity. And then
Mm-hmm.
I got, when I got the chance to go under the hood and look at how that was built, Burke was a madman.
Yeah.
That's some great shit. People have no idea how, like you said, duct tape and chicken wire. That's how that thing was put together, man. And it worked. And it didn't work all the time, but shit, it worked enough that it was insanely good. Um,
Yeah.
all that stuff. That was that was fun, and I loved everything I worked on in EQ. But that was to me, that was the golden age, really.
Cool.
Um, and then I was really fortunate. We had a period of time where we got to do some passion project kind of thing. We had a little extra cycles, and Akil was like, "Hey, man, what do you got in the anything you really 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 want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could think of something I'd really like to do." And I went back and reimagined all of the raids in Temple of Ishan, and I wanted to keep them. So I made a higher level version of TOV basically, but I wanted to spice up the raids a little bit. But I wanted to keep them true to the stuff that Bill did, because I'm pretty sure Fisher did TOV if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I thought he had done all of it.
I think he did. Yeah, I wanted to keep that feel the same, but I kind of spiced them up a little bit. And as a developer, that was some of the most fun stuff to work on for me. It was that, I mean, I'm sure you've been there, where you start to work on something and you get inspired by it, and that inspiration just drives you, and you get this kind of excitement building of the work you're doing, not the people playing it, not you playing it, but you get excited by the work you're doing. And that was by far the most fun. And then I got a chance to redo Plane of Hate. I redid the Hate stuff, and Plane of Fear. But I love doing that stuff. That was a chance for me to go back and kind of put my little twist on the stuff that I had loved so much as a player. So that was supremely exciting. Yeah, that was good times, man. There was a lot of those moments. I got a chance to do just a simple thing like a mission, and I was really struggling with it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. It was in the whole period of when we were killing Kazakh Thule, and somewhere along the line, I got the idea. I'm going to take the old God, what was the name of that system where you could become a character? It wasn't. It was
the Project M.
No, it wasn't Project M. It was Shrouds. That's it.
Shrouds. Okay, that's a good bit after me then, I guess.
Yeah. So I took that system and I allowed players to play the gods, to defeat the people who were trying to kill the gods. And I remember putting it up on Facebook, like I hit an idea and I can't go home. And I stayed there the entire night to just bang out this mission, because I was so motivated. And I got done with it, and I finished up, and everybody's coming to work, and they're like, "The hell, you're still here?" I'm like, "Yeah, got motivated, couldn't leave." And those moments were the ones that really just I'll never forget those moments of inspiration, those little nuggets of just pure creative joy that I got out of game development. That's why I'm trying to get back. I've been interviewing a couple of places, and I'm trying to get back into it, because nothing has hit that level of satisfaction for me yet.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from.
Don't get me wrong, the UAV stuff had its own kind of satisfaction, because there were times, quite literally, where the work that I did made people get home to their families. Like, it was they survived. This was no joke. This was true life and death shit. But from a creative side, nothing has touched what I did in EverQuest. It was just, I cannot express how gratifying some of that was.
So can I ask, because we hit on sort of the inverse of this earlier, the part where you dump your creativity in and it can be hard. But did you have any of those moments? Because I had some moments where everything else was pretty shitty, but I would run into those moments at work where I was building something, and I would lose myself in the act of like being able to create something, and like, I didn't care that the rest of the world was like,
Sure.
It was just this great escape just in the work.
Absolutely. There were plenty of times where you'd get motivated like that and be so focused on what you're doing, like you say, that the outside world just didn't matter. Like, I didn't give a shit that the whole world was imploding. It was I'm doing this thing, and I've got that spark in the back of my head that is just keep driving me. And in a way, it was like almost afraid that if I stop, I'm going to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have musician friends that are in, you know, some pretty big bands around the world, and they tell me that there's times when they wake up in the middle of the night and they literally have to grab their guitar at 3 in the morning and a little tape deck or a little, you know, little grab their computer and put a riff down that they've written because they're terrified that if they go to sleep, they'll wake up in the morning and they won't remember it. And it's been stuff like that with game development. Same thing. It's like you just gotta, when the moment hits you, you can't let it go. You got to keep pushing until you've finished it, until you've driven it out. And that's real. That's visceral. That's what drives the creative thing. Once you've had one of those moments, you live for those moments. It becomes a drive. So, you know, I hate to cut it off, but I do have
Yeah.
to go make that stupid Genius Bar appointment because my MacBook took a crap yesterday.
I was watching the
Uh,
time, man. That's why I asked
yeah,
earlier. So
I definitely want to come back if you'll have me back because I love talking about
absolutely,
this.
dude.
I absolutely love talking about this shit. I will say my parting gift thing to if there's anything, I may have
Mm.
been combative. I may have been hard to deal with at times, but truly I cherish every single moment and everybody I have ever worked with in this industry. It has been the creative outlet that I could not have imagined. It has been amazing. Every single person. It's just been except for
A
Dave.
few, a couple. Poor Dave. Sorry, Dave.
Uh,
Um,
eh.
yeah, it's a shame we didn't get to work together yet.
Yeah, yet. But anyway, I gotta go. Let's do it again sometime. I'm happy to do it.
Absolutely,
Love to
dude.
do it. Love talking
Well,
about
we're
this
in
shit.
Discord, so let's talk and
Yeah,
we'll pull this shit together soon.
for sure, brother. All right, man.
Cool.
We'll see you.
Thank you so much. See you.
Yeah.